Hello and welcome to Your Schools. I'm Lynn Turner Fitzgerald, and my guest is Randy Russell. He is the Executive Director of Adult Education for School District 2. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And welcome. This is not your first year as the Executive Director. You've been doing it in the past, kind of juggling a couple of positions in the district.
Correct, yes. My first year I've been able to really focus on adult education,
Right.
and it's nice to really put my efforts to one area.
Right. Well, before we started this interview, I was just curious about adult ed. Is that mandated by the state of Montana?
No, it's not. Communities, what happens is communities and school districts have the ability, if they would want to permissive levy the local taxpayers, to run an adult education program. A school community our size, especially our school district with over 17,000 students, there's a significant need in our community, in our greater Yellowstone community, to have adult education and support those individuals seeking their HiSET certificate or just in preparation of going to college. They want to come to us and take a couple of classes to kind of freshen up, so to speak,
Right.
before they go to college.
Well, and the great news is it's free.
It is, correct.
It doesn't cost anything.
Yes, they have the ability to come to us at no cost, enroll in our classes. There's a few steps they need to do. They need to take the HiSET test or the TABE test with us. It's a kind of a pre-assessment, and then we enroll them in our program. It is at no cost, and what's nice is as they strengthen those academic skills they need in college, they're not placed into a college remedial class where they have to pay for it. For us, it's free.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, explain HiSET. Didn't that used to be called the GED?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and GED still exists, but some states have gone toward the HiSET. It's very, very similar exit exams, if you will.
Okay.
Some states have just chosen to go with the HiSET direction, and Montana was one of those. And I believe they did it at least a half a dozen years ago or more, prior to my time coming in.
What exactly is the process then if a student is enrolled in HiSET? What happens?
So in order to get enrolled into our program, they'll have to have an exit certificate from their school. And what I mean by that is, unfortunately, they have to be at least 16 years old,
Okay.
and they would have had to have dropped out of high school.
Okay.
That's one criteria. Another criteria is they have their diploma, but they want to get college ready and prepared. So they would need to come in, they need a TABE test. It's a pre-assessment that happens. They do that process. We do it on Mondays and Tuesdays, starting at 9 o'clock, and it's kind of a first come, first serve basis. And what we've been seeing is a lot of individuals coming in and TABE testing with us. From there, what they do is set up a counseling appointment with one of our two counselors, and they will meet with them, go through their TABE scores. Here's your strengths, here's some things that you do really well, and then here's some things we need to kind of support and get you a little bit better prepared into your next journey, and whatever that may be. A third component is we do have some employers in our community that they want to provide promotions opportunities for their employees to move forward in their organization. However, again, they may be lacking in some skills. They may have their high school diploma, but maybe math is a skill they need to get a little bit better at. So they'll send them our direction, and we will work with them to get them up, and prepared on the career side.
Well, that's a real investment then on the part of the employer too.
Absolutely, and this year we've had some new partnerships come into existence, and especially with our ESL program. So it's pretty exciting of where that's going.
Okay, English as a second language.
Correct.
So that's growing.
It is.
Okay.
It is. We had a business approach our organization and said, we would like our employees to, again, improve their English skills. And what could you do with us? So we're partnering up with them, and their employees, and there's over a dozen that are working with us that are coming in the mornings and going through classes with us to improve their English skills.
Well, so English from how many languages are available?
Well, in our program, the primary, if we just looked at our overall student enrollment right now, is Spanish is our predominant language.
Sure.
But we have individuals from all over, Arabic, Farsi. We have, again, South American. So in Spanish. So
Sure.
we probably have, and I'm just taking a little bit of a guess here, we probably have almost a half a dozen different languages in a class. So our teacher's working with all of those different students.
Wow, that's got to be a bit of a challenge.
It is, absolutely. But we have an excellent teacher, and she's up for that. Any challenge we throw her way.
Well, I was going to ask you about college prep. Is that different from HiSET?
Well, they're not seeking necessarily their HiSET certificate. We could have two different students. One who wants to go to college, did drop out of high school, so they're in need of their HiSET certificate. So they'll come in, they'll tape test with us, and they'll seek that certificate in preparation of getting college entrance. We have other individuals that come in, student B, who already has their high school diploma, but they're lacking, and they know as they come out that they're lacking in some skills. And again, I'll use math as an example. They got to get a little bit better and stronger at math, and we'll tape test them, we'll look at where their deficiencies are, and then we'll work with them specifically geared toward college preparation.
Okay. Now, do you have a typical adult ed student, or does it range?
It ranges. From my time, the last 4 years being involved in adult ed, from 16 years old, and I believe it was 3 years ago, we had an individual, a gentleman who was in his 70s, seeking his HiSET certificate. He didn't graduate high school and just wanted to have that.
Just get that
lifelong
achievement
goal.
under his belt. Isn't that great?
It is, and one of the fascinating things is many of our students are seeking the HiSET certificate. They've unfortunately, life has derailed their plans in some way, and they didn't graduate high school, and they come in and they work with us, and they achieve that certificate, and just to see the pride that they have, that personal achievement. It's pretty phenomenal, and we host a graduation, which you really see it that evening.
Right.
So,
well, I've noticed in the halls of the Lincoln Center, where all of this takes place, photographs of these students in their graduation caps and gowns, many of them holding babies, or with a parent, or with a spouse, and you're right, you can just see it in their face.
yes. Yeah.
They're so proud.
And they have messages of why they did it. Many of them, they have some personal goals, but I did it, for my family. I did it for my kids. I did it for my husband. And you're right. And again, you see it on stage when you're handing them their certificate, so to speak, at graduation. It's one of the most moving as an educator. This is my year 30. And I've been in many, many graduations, and not to take away from any of those graduation ceremonies, but this one is just, it really hits me personally. Of what they've had to endure in their life and get through, and this is where they're at.
And they didn't give up.
Exactly.
They're moving forward.
Yeah, we had a young lady who had she was 20, but just in her time had significant challenges with substance abuse, overcame those things, was with us for about 6 months, achieved her HiSET, and she was a speaker for us at our graduation ceremony. Just really impressive.
That's good. And it's a great asset for the community.
It is. To be able to have, as the community is seeking more employees, to have individuals who have gone through, achieved their HiSET, again, being prepared in the career side, I think it's a very, very valuable asset to our community and our businesses in our community.
Right. Well, do you see the path or the goals of adult ed evolving, changing?
There's a little bit more, yes. While we talk about HiSET, and that's what I've been speaking at primarily, we also have a component of workforce ready. So we are funded through the Department of Labor. So there's a very strong component of that. We have to prepare students as they exit through and out of adult ed, going into the workforce. Are these skills ready? Do they have what they need to be in, for that career and next step? So,
well, what kinds of training then does that provide them?
So it could be a variety of things. In our program, we have a college and career class, but college skill or career skills. Sorry, we have an individual that focuses on resumes, cover letters. They will focus on interviews and interviewing skills, those soft skills that those students need. And then also we'll look at some certificates. Is there a way to, depending on what their passion is I want to go into this particular field, maybe it's hospitality. Are there some certificates that we can do online with them that they have in hand that again, builds their resume? And as they walk into a potential employer for an interview, that, hey, these are the things I already have. So they're a little more prepared than maybe the next applicant.
Sure, okay. So, well, again, great asset for the community. But now, moving forward, I mean, the technology is changing so much and so quickly. And in the workforce, too. Do you address that?
We do our very best, and again, through that career skills class that I just spoke about. And we also will do some computer skills within all of our classes, because the HiSET, for example, test is a computer-based exam. So we got to make sure that the students have those abilities because to be successful. And so there is some components of that. The primary focus, again, is getting them up with the reading, the math. Those are two keys that they have to have moving forward.
Well, and I would think it would take a certain amount of courage to come forward and say, I can't read.
I would, yes. But you know, what I've seen with students coming into adult ed, they're coming with a purpose. I mean, they want that certificate, or they want to get prepared to go to college. So they are very driven. They're very goal-oriented, and that's part of their intake process with our counselors. What are your goals? And then we keep that at the forefront in our discussions with those students, and especially with our counselors, and when they're working one-on-one with them.
Right.
And you know, attendance and things, they're here. They're with us. They don't miss class. They're again, there's goals that they have. So, you know, sometimes we have students that come in that may be a little younger. We're seeing younger students, 16, 17 years old. They may need to, you know, pause out of the program for a little while and experience life a little bit, and then they come back. And when they come back, we see a big change in them.
They really want to be there.
Yes.
They really want to be there. What is the typical length of commitment for these students?
Yeah, it really depends on their level, but if I had to just a generic number, they're probably 4 to 5 months.
Okay.
And they're able to work through the HiSET, but it really depends on their level. We have kind of a level 1 through 6 is on the TABE, if you will, is kind of where they land. 1 is a little more in need of a lot of support academically. 6 is they could probably pass the HiSET right now.
Okay.
So their stays could look drastically different. Typically, though, students need to be with us for at least 40 hours. And then we work from there. And as they're ready to test out of the subjects, they will begin testing out of those 5 areas. They don't have to do all of the subsections at once. So if they're ready for math, they will take the math test.
Okay,
and
I
if they
see.
pass that, then they can move on to maybe it's writing or the English side or the social studies. So they're able to just kind of chunk it off, so to speak, and make it manageable.
But it's kind of at their pace then?
It is, yeah.
And then what is a daily commitment? Are these students still able to have a job while they're completing all this?
Yes. So we kind of run 2 different programs. They're the same program but 2 different times. So we go Monday through Friday. Students have to do 3 days a week for 3 hours is what we ask. So usually a math, science, and then an English social studies class. And the instruction is where they're at their level. So you may have 15 students in your classroom as a teacher, and they could be in 15 different spots. So it's personalized instruction, if you will, in the classroom. But then for some individuals, they work during the day, and they don't get done till 5 o'clock. So then we're running night classes on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 5:30. And then we will run those for 2 hours in an evening to accommodate those that are already employed.
So all of this is classroom. Is any of it online? We
We do a little bit online depending on an individual circumstances. But honestly, what we've found over time is online is very difficult. It's coming in and sitting and getting that face-to-face instruction. We see a lot more success with our students. It's a little bit easier to say, well, the computer's sitting there on the coffee table, I'll get to it in a second, and then they just don't get online.
There you go, yeah.
As opposed that, you know, they come right from work and they come right straight to our classes if it's in the evening. So while there's not, in my opinion, a tremendous amount of success online, we do offer it. Students have to have a certain skill level in reading before we'll offer that, because online is asynchronous, a lot of it, and there needs to have some reading skills in order to move themselves forward.
Right. And then, of course, not everyone has access to a computer. But I'm wondering if that's the case for a student, are they allowed to come in and just practice on your computers?
Yeah, so in our student lounge, we have computers set up. So again, we may have students that have been with us in the past may come in and utilize those machines because they're job searching or they're doing whatever they need to do on the computer. They have some access there that way. So yes, with the distance learning, if an individual doesn't have a device, we assign them one. so that they have that.
Oh, sure, okay.
The internet connection will need to be, they'll need to navigate that, but there's lots of opportunities in our community to go somewhere, have a seat, and log on to their internet. So
Education has certainly changed, hasn't it?
drastically.
You
from when I
said
first
30 years?
This
or
is year 30 for me.
in education?
It is.
Well, if you don't mind, let's go back a little bit into your career. You started as a teacher?
I did. I was a teacher, a physical education and health teacher in Bellevue, Washington.
Okay.
Bellevue School District, yes. So I did. I was at it was an alternative public school, but when I say alternative, it was very academic focused. So it was called the International School, and what students did is they took 7 classes for 7 years. The only electives they had was either they were taking French or German, or they were taking music or art. Otherwise, your 4 cores as they exist right now, physical education, you had to do them for 7 years. We were extremely high achieving for a public school in that state.
I've never heard of a system like that. So why 7 years?
It's 6th grade, so they would come in as 6th graders and they would stay with us through their graduation year. So some of the classes, for example, what we may do with students for Spanish 1, I'll just use, and for us it was French or German, that class may be at the high school level. For the students in that particular school, it was at 6th grade. So they were taking almost that high school credit, if you will, in 6th grade and moving through. So it was a lottery system, so we only allowed 75 students into the school each year, but over 500 would apply. So if they applied, and really it was filling out a piece of paper, and they gave that piece of paper to the school gave them a number. The number went into the balls, into the big bin, and as they rolled them out, just like a lottery, you know, ball 15, you're the first one in. So the first 75 students got into the school.
Wow. So if you missed out getting in 6th grade, that was it?
Not necessarily. So if they would go through all the individuals that applied to the school. Okay. So maybe I am number 77, and maybe 76 didn't, and 75 decided they weren't going to go to that. They decided, I'm not going. Well, then I got in. In 7th or 8th grade, they just kept that list going, and they kept inviting individuals to join our program. What we did find is, as you got navigated further into the program, that junior year, senior year, it got a little tougher for some students.
I would bet. It sounds like it's college level practically.
Yeah, it's very high achieving students.
Is it still
in existence? Yes.
Really?
I actually looked just earlier this year, and they still are going. I didn't see any names that were familiar to me of staff.
Yeah.
Staff has changed over.
So that was Bellevue, Washington.
Correct.
What was next?
After I was in Bellevue, I got a middle school, high school principal job in New York, and that's actually where I graduated from.
City?
No, it was upstate New York near Binghamton.
Okay.
And I did it for a year. I did not feel like it was a good fit for me, and my wife was still, with our youngest daughter, was still in Washington. So
That's
we did
hard.
that for a year, and we didn't like that.
No.
And we just kind of decided, where would we want to go? If we could go anywhere, where would we want to live? And Montana was definitely the place that we wanted to be. There was no doubt about that. It's just, where could I get a job? And I was fortunate to get a job at Bozeman High School. So I was the district activities director for 11 years. And then I was in need of a change. I'm an individual that I like new challenges, different things. Change. I welcome change. So I
It's a
moved
good
into
thing.
it is.
That's about all you get.
So I moved into a superintendent role. I was in Shields Valley at that school for a couple of years.
That's a beautiful area.
It is, and we still own property in that area. Small little ranch, and then I went to Gardner for 2 years. Gardner was facing some significant budget challenges, and I knew that going into the position. But I just thought, with what they were facing as a district, that it would be a great learning experience of how to navigate that as a school community.
Right.
So I did that for 2 years, but it got to a point where they couldn't afford 2 administrators because there was a superintendent and then a K-12 principal, and it just didn't. For a school that size, a district, it didn't make sense. And I was very fortunate to get into the billing system.
Okay.
So.
Well, we're glad you're here.
So thanks.
And you know, one of the things going on is teacher shortages all over the country. Has that impacted your program at all? Do you have the same teachers returning year after year for these students?
I do. We've been very lucky in that way. I have had a couple of staff retire, but what I've found through our program is that as an individual retires, while our depth of applicants may not be very deep, just like our school,
Right.
the quality is phenomenal
Oh.
for those individuals wanting to get into the adult education program. Some of our very best and brightest teachers in this state and in our district trying to get into adult ed.
So are those certified positions?
They are. We make sure that we have certified teachers in our program. They're part of the bargaining unit. So, and it's part of what what we feel makes us different than other programs in Montana. Many programs do not have certified teachers. We want that.
Yeah.
We want them to have those skill sets, having gone through that education strand. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, have you, and I know that you probably integrate with the students, are there any of them who are considering teaching because of their experience in the adult ed program?
I hope so. I don't know that, I don't have a number, even anecdotally, that to give you a general idea, but I would hope so. I would hope that as they funnel through our system, that their experience was enjoyable enough that, I want to do that too. I want to make a difference in somebody's life.
Right.
And that's how it was for me, and that's why I went into education, is, the individuals that impacted me when I was in high school, and just who they were and how they presented themselves and just the quality of human being they were.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like them.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, walk me through the process. Now, if somebody's watching this and they're curious but not committed, what should they do?
The first thing I would do is reach out to the registrar's office in adult education.
Okay.
That number can be found on our district website, and talk to Heather, and she can kind of walk through the next steps. So inevitably they'll have to come in and tape test with us. So she'll walk through that schedule.
And the
time.
tape test, again, excuse me, is just an assessment of kind of where you're at?
Correct. It's
Okay.
a pre-assessment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, of what academically where an individual is at.
Some people hear the word test, though, and they panic.
Yeah,
This is not that kind of test.
It's exactly. Again, it's an assessment, and it's just for assessing where they are skill level for reading and math and science. Just, again, to give us an idea, where do we need to support you? Because, again, our instruction is personalized, so there's no reason for us to, if you're missing a couple of concepts in a particular area, English or math, we don't need to reteach other things to you. We just need to
Right.
focus on those two things and get you through that way. Again, personalized instruction. It guides us in that.
And 16 is the minimum age.
Correct.
Okay, but
and that is
then-
a state rule.
Okay, because I was wondering about that as I was coming into the interview. If, say, a child dropped out at age 15 and just waited until they were 16, could they get in?
Yes, they can get in. I would not recommend that, because what happens is if a student drops out earlier than 16 and does not come to us, that year gap of
Yeah.
education that they could have gotten, now we have to backfill, which means their time with us is going to be longer than it probably needed to be.
Okay.
So it's really important that if anybody is thinking that, maybe this isn't the right path for me, and maybe adult ed is, still take advantage of every single opportunity you have in your education. Stay with it until you reach that point that and you and your family decide adult ed is our path.
Right. Well, and again, I think it's important to remind people that there's no cost involved.
Correct. No cost.
This is a gift.
It is. Again, I don't even know how to express it. Something that a community, again, shows the value in, and they invest in this.
Right.
And it's greatly appreciated. And I hope that people see the return back, meaning our larger community members, our business owners,
Yeah.
they see that.
Well, and
We
with the
appreciate it.
partnerships that you're establishing, I'm sure they are
Yeah, I hope so.
seeing. All right. Well, did we miss anything, Randy?
No, I really appreciate you taking the time and letting me come in and talk about adult ed.
Well, you can get more information, go on to getstartedbillings.org. So I wanted to show this as well. This is the mid-fall catalog. It's got all the adult ed and the community education classes listed, times, and some of the community classes do charge,
They do.
but adult ed, no. You can pick these up at the Lincoln Center, or you can also go online to getstartedbillings.org, and the entire catalog is there for you.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Your Schools. I'm Lynn Turner Fitzgerald. See you next time.